What happens when Barron Trump faces a professor publicly mocking his father in a packed lecture hall? What he does next leaves everyone speechless and changes the conversation forever. Watch till the end to see how one moment of courage sparks a ripple effect no one saw coming. The lecture hall at New York University Stern was alive with the quiet murmurs of students settling in for their ethics class. The room, large enough to seat over 100, had its usual rhythm. Students typing hurriedly on their laptops, some flipping through notebooks, and others sipping coffee. The topic for the day was one that often led to heated debates: ethics in business. Professor Riley, a seasoned educator with a reputation for her unapologetically sharp critiques, stepped up to the podium. Known for her no-nonsense attitude, she wasted no time setting the tone for the session. Ethics in business, she began, her voice cutting through the room, is not just a buzzword. It's the foundation, or lack thereof, behind every failed deal, every lawsuit, and every scandal you've ever read about. She walked across the stage, her heels clicking against the floor, her voice growing more pointed. Mismanagement, greed, narcissism. These are the enemies of ethical decision-making, she said. Then, after a brief pause, she added, let's take a real-life example: Donald Trump. A ripple of nervous energy spread through the room. Professor Riley's smile was thin and sharp, and her tone carried a mix of humor and derision. Donald Trump, she repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. A so-called billionaire whose ethics are as questionable as his hairline. Nervous laughter broke out among the students. It was the kind of laughter that came more from discomfort than amusement. Everyone in the room knew who was sitting in the front row: Barron Trump. Barron, tall and composed, sat with his notebook open, pen in hand. His expression betrayed nothing. He didn't shift in his seat or react in any visible way, but those close to him noticed the slight tightening of his jaw. Professor Riley pressed on, growing more animated as she dissected Trump's business ventures. Let's look at his track record. Real estate projects that were overhyped and underdelivered. Bankruptcies that left others to clean up the mess. And of course, the infamous art of the deal, which should probably be renamed the art of overpromising. This time, there was no laughter, just an awkward, heavy silence. Some students glanced sideways at Barron, unsure of how he was processing the onslaught of criticism. The tension in the room grew thicker as Professor Riley continued. What's truly remarkable, she said, is how someone can fail so spectacularly and still brand themselves as a genius. It's a testament to the power of spin over substance. Barron sat still, his pen resting on the page. His classmates watched him out of the corners of their eyes, some admiring his composure, others feeling secondhand embarrassment. Finally, Barron raised his hand. The motion was small but electrifying. The entire room seemed to freeze as every eye turned toward him. Professor Riley stopped mid-sentence, clearly caught off guard. Yes? She said, her voice carrying a hint of surprise. Barron spoke evenly, his tone calm but firm. Professor, I respect your perspective, but I think this discussion could benefit from a bit more balance. A murmur swept through the room. Barron's voice was steady, his gaze unwavering. My father's career, like anyone's, is not without its controversies, he continued, but I think it's unfair to reduce him to a series of sound bites and headlines. Behind every success and every failure, there's a team of people who work tirelessly. There's resilience, vision, and a willingness to take risks. The room was utterly silent. Professor Riley, for the first time, seemed to hesitate. Barron leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped on the desk. Criticism is important, he said. It holds people accountable. But I think there's a difference between constructive criticism and personal attacks. No one is perfect, and no one achieves anything entirely on their own. If we're going to have a discussion about ethics, let's have a fair one. His words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. Professor Riley tilted her head, studying him. Finally, she nodded. You make a fair point, she said. Perhaps I was too harsh. Thank you for reminding me that every story has multiple sides. The tension in the room eased slightly as a quiet ripple of applause broke out. For the rest of the lecture, the energy in the room shifted. Students who had been hesitant to speak earlier now felt emboldened to share their thoughts. Barron remained engaged but mostly quiet. letting the discussion unfold around him. After class, a few students approached Barron. "That was impressive," one of them said. "I don't think I could have handled that the way you did." Barron smiled politely. "I just said what I felt needed to be said." Over the next few weeks, the incident became a topic of conversation across campus. Some students expressed newfound respect for Barron, while others admitted they had misjudged him. One evening, Barron was invited to join a group of classmates debating business ethics. The discussion was lively, touching on the complexities of success and failure. At one point, a student turned to Barron and said, "You've really made us think differently about judgment." Barron nodded. "I think it's important to challenge assumptions," he said, "but it's just as important to listen. There's always more to a story than what we see on the surface." Professor Riley, too, reflected on the experience. One afternoon, she approached Barron outside of class. "You reminded me why I became a teacher," she said. "It's easy to critique from a distance, but you showed me the importance of understanding the human element behind every story." Barron nodded thoughtfully. "My father always taught me to try to understand others, even if we don't agree. It's about finding common ground." Their conversation ended on a note of mutual respect. By the end of the semester, Barron's thoughtful approach had left a lasting impact. He wasn't just seen as the son of a polarizing figure, he was recognized as a thoughtful individual with his own perspective. For Barron, the experience wasn't about changing opinions, it was about planting the seed of understanding and watching it grow. By the end of the semester, Barron's thoughtful approach had left a lasting impact on his classmates and even his professor. He wasn't just seen as the son of a polarizing figure anymore. He was recognized as a young man with his own voice, a voice that inspired others to think more deeply and seek understanding, even in the face of bias and criticism. And just like that, one moment of courage sparked a chain reaction, proving that even the smallest voices can carry the weight of change. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Tailcraft, where we bring you thought-provoking stories like this one. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.